So if you're watching this video, you're probably interested in getting a full frame compact camera. And ever since the release of the Panasonic S9, there's so much hype behind full frame compact cameras. This is my Sony A7C. I love this thing. I built my YouTube channel off of it. So I figured I'd make this video to answer some of your questions, like which manufacturer has the best full frame compact camera, Panasonic, Sony, or Canon? What are the pros and cons of each of these systems? And then ultimately decide what are the best 3 options and answer the age-old question, is full frame even necessary? And if it's your first time here, my name's Fredo. I'm a hybrid athlete here in New York City. That means I run, I box, I swim, I do yoga, and I lift weights. And I'm a full-time content creator. So I test these solutions for you guys because I'm using them too. And at one point I was where you were, watching tons of creators on YouTube showing me garbage advice and garbage products. So hopefully I can save you some money. And just a preference really quick, what categorizes as a full frame compact camera? Everybody's going to have their own opinion, but for me, it's any camera that's under 490 grams, the body. Obviously, there's going to be better systems for photo than for video, depending on your specific use case. Overall, we're talking about the weight of the body without the lens. And yeah, if you're curious about these solutions, I'll have the link in the description below. What bodies and what lens combos I recommend, you guys can pick them up through there. So yeah, let's get into it. So starting off with Canon. Canon's got about 3 bodies you can choose from for full frame compact, which is the Canon RP, the Canon R, and the Canon R8. And to help me make this video, I just went to my local Best Buy and checked out both of those models, the ones that were on display anyway. And my recommendation, if you want to go with the Canon system, is to go with the Canon R8. That's their latest version. The Canon R8 is going to give you unlimited record time, a better DIGIC X processor, better dynamic range, and a bunch of other really good specs that make it way more competitive than the RP or the R. Now, if you want to go with Canon, there is just one con you have to be aware of, and that's the lens selection. The lens selection is extremely limited. I think they just decided to open up the RF mount to third-party manufacturers, so that could change in the future. But as of now, if you wanted to go with the Canon system, you're stuck between a 16 and a 24 mil, depending on what type of usage you want to get out of it. And the lenses are super expensive, so just keep that in mind. So if you wanted to go with the Canon solution, you can get an R8 for about $1,300. And even if you pair that with their best lens, which is their 24 f1.8 with IS, I think you're under 2K. Now, if you're on a super budget and you still want to go with Canon, the Canon RP is an amazing camera, but it has some serious limitations. I would only pick the Canon RP if you're going to go for 1080p video only. For stills, it doesn't matter. You'll be fine. But the Canon RP has some not so great autofocus in 4K. I'll just leave it at that. The Canon RP body can be found for about 700, 800, 900 bucks online. I've bought one for super cheap on Facebook Marketplace, so just do some research. All in all, Canon is not a bad choice, but there are better options. And I'm obviously talking about Sony. About a year ago, before I started my YouTube channel, I had to make the same decision, Canon R8 or Sony A7C for full frame cameras. Obviously, I went with Sony, and since then, Sony has a couple new options for full frame compact bodies. Now, for the sake of this video, we're going to combine most of their options because they're almost 3 identical cameras. I'm talking about the Sony A7C, the Sony A7C II, the Sony A7C R, and the ZV-E1. So 3 of those cameras are in the Sony A7C family. So just to break it down really simply, if you are using this for photo, go with the Sony A7C. It has a viewfinder and other photocentric features. But if you're using this for video, get the Sony ZV-E1. It's essentially baby Sony FX3, which is an amazing video camera right there, plus with some additional AI functionality and tracking features. Another benefit of going with the Sony ecosystem is that there's dozens of third-party lenses that you can choose from to get exactly the focal length that you want, so there's no limitation there. Now, if I had to come up with a con for going with the Sony system, is that the lenses are pretty pricey. Around $700 to $1,500 to get the full frame versions of the lenses that you probably want. Even though there are some great budget primes, the downside of the Sony ecosystem is that you have to be comfortable using APS-C glass on here, which is totally fine because there's a mode for that, but that means you're not getting the full use of your sensor if you are on a budget. So when it comes to the solution, I would recommend the Sony ZV-E1. You can get a Sony ZV-E1 for about $1,700 used, brand new, about 2 something. Totally worth the investment. If you're balling out, that's the solution I'd go with. Now, if you're on a super budget, you can always pick up a Sony A7C like I did. You can find these used for a relatively good price, between $800 and $1,000 if you look at the right place. And this camera still holds up. It takes amazing quality video. It's got amazing autofocus, especially when you pair it with an official Sony lens. You cannot go wrong with a Sony A7C for video or for photo. You can spend about $1,000 on this body and get a really nice Sony lens to boot to stay under 2K. The ZV-E1 is the pricier option here because you're going to be spending about 2.5K just to get the body and a nice lens. Of course, this is pretty self-evident. A lot of people go with Sony. Almost all of YouTube is Sony users, and it's for a reason. So yeah, last but not least is the new kid on the block, the Panasonic S9. And there's so much hype around this camera. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good product, but people just get really carried away with the marketing. I have a whole video breaking that down if you want to go check that out after this one. That being said, the Lumix S9 gives you the smallest footprint in terms of body. So it's the thinnest camera, which is what really gives a camera its sex appeal. Of course, the real headline feature is going to be open gate. How practical that is for your usage, I don't know. So that's one of its pros. The next pro is going to be the IBIS. The IBIS on the Panasonic S9 is amazing. They've got about like 5 different stops of image stabilization that makes it look like you're using a gimbal when the footage is just handheld. So it seems like a really good solution for people who are doing video on the go. But of course, no camera is perfect, so we got to talk about the cons. This isn't a photo camera. If you want to use flash, it's not really an option. That being said, biggest con that not enough people are talking about is the lens selection. Not only are their lenses pricey, but they're huge. Something about the way that the Panasonic lenses are designed, their mount system, the L mount, all their glass is massive. There is no compact prime solution for them, which means that essentially whatever space you're saving with the compact camera body is negated by that huge lens. I think one of their best lenses is the 18mm f1.8, which is a beautiful looking lens, obviously super fast, but the thing's almost $1,000 and it's heavy. I'll put the weight right here, especially compared to other solutions you can get on other cameras. So that being said, let's go through the top 3 options for full frame compact cameras and answer, is a full frame camera even worth it if you're looking at compact portable cameras? So in first place is going to be the Sony ZV-E1 for obvious reasons. It is a video centric camera with a great lens selection. Whatever your budget is, you can easily enter that system. Second is going to be the Canon R8. And it's because I don't need to worry about lenses. If I want a good lens, I just slap the 16 f2.8 on there and I'm done. There's no struggle on making a decision. There's no illusion of choice. It's just one and done, 16 or 24. And last but not least, Panasonic S9, third place for full frame compact camera, just because of the lens selection, which is expensive and heavy. And just to preface, these are my personal opinions as a full-time content creator who does mostly video for himself. That being said, I've got a DJI Pocket Osmo 3, I've got the Sony A7C, and I've got a Sony FX30. So I have tons of options that, again, I test and use on a daily basis. The truth is, when it comes to having a compact camera that gives me really good images, I don't reach for any of these. Not the Pocket Osmo 3, not my Sony FX3, and not my Sony A7C. None of these cameras is what I want to be dragging around me. Look at the size of this guy with that 13mm lens. I don't want to drag around or deal with any of these cameras. The camera that I do use is the one I've been filming this whole video on, which is the Sony RX100 VA, which is a camera from like 2017. I don't know, I'll put the year here, but it's just like the ZV-1, which is an amazing camera for $500. You could probably get it used. And that's the camera I recommend for most people. You don't need full frame if you know how to use this camera. I'll actually switch to my FX30 just so I can show you the camera. So here we go. This is what I used to shoot that whole entire video. This is the Sony RX100 VA. Can you see it there? Again, super old point and shoot camera. I have a special blue wide angle filter on there, which gives it that anamorphic kind of effect, or that kind of blue hue that you saw, which I don't know if I'm crazy about. That being said, Ulanzi makes a wide angle filter to make this super usable for talking head videos, just because it's kind of tight at 24. But this is my dream camera, or at least the ZV-1 is. Let me explain why. This thing is compact. It actually fits in your pocket, and that's because the lens retracts. So when I'm not using this, it's compact. It fits in my pocket. But what's really amazing is that this is not just an ordinary lens. This is a 24 to 50 f1.8 to f2.8. You can't get that for under $500. You can't. It's not possible. In a pocket camera, if you know how to use this, it's powerful. It's cinematic. It's the best camera you can have with you at all times, especially because it can shoot 4K when you need it. So the image quality is unrivaled on this little guy. I love it to death. I want to buy 2 of them. And I can confidently say that I can run my whole entire YouTube channel just off of this tiny little camera. So yeah, now you know this whole video was shot with the Sony RX100 VA, which is again a super old camera. Gear definitely does matter. The truth is that the gear from 4 or 5 years ago is still more than adequate for shooting content. It's a creativity that people want. It's a personality. And Nobody can sell you a personality on YouTube. I want to preface that. I want to be clear. The gear that you're obsessed with is not going to make you a better content creator. Nobody on YouTube can sell you confidence. You've got to develop that on your own. Now, you could technically copy inspiration from other confident people around you. So maybe I'm contradicting myself. Honestly, at this point, I should make a video about how I'm so confident to do YouTube after 10 years of not doing YouTube. That would be an interesting video. Comment below if you want to see that. So yeah, I hope that helped you in your buying decision. Like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more content. There's links in the descriptions below if you need them to pick up any of these products, and I'll see you in the next one.